The Olympics was not the only show in town in 2024. We're going to talk about the Euros now for a short while. This session is called The Road to Berlin. For its studio presentation work during Euro 2024, BBC Sport made use of two mixed reality sets installed in a temporary studio complex opposite the Brandenburg Gate. One was on the roof terrace outside, and one was inside. Both made use of extended reality, augmented reality, and LEDs to provide a museum-themed look and feel that complemented the local architecture. It was all produced remotely, and the setup was praised by industry and viewers alike for its visual and technical achievement. Joining me to discuss how it was done and why are John Murphy, BBC Sport Design Director, Chris Izatt, AE Live's Director of Innovation and Virtual, and Olaf Sperwer, Row Visual Business Development Manager for Virtual Production. Welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us today. Before we chat, can we see the studios in action, please?
Taking a big risk there.
I think they're clapping you, not me. John, let's start with you. How and when did the idea for this first come about?
So firstly, just want to say really good to be here. So how did it come about? So I've been obviously talking with Olaf for a couple of years just about LED production and wanting to kind of have a project at some point to do something with it. And then myself, Phil Bigwood and Colin Harty, Phil Bigwood, our exec producer for football, and Colin, our director, we came to IBC last year. And we obviously had a good chat with Row, and we started to think that actually this could be something that we could do for the Euros. And obviously Chris from AE, we had a chat with him at the same time, IBC, and it was kind of like, we might do something for the Euros here. And that was pretty much kind of from the technical point of view and the utilising LED and the mixed reality. At that point, we didn't have, it wasn't agreed on the two studios or anything like that. We didn't have a creative behind it. That was just the kind of the building blocks to do something.
Was it back of a fag packet? Is that the
description? It was all back of a fag packet.
Yeah, and we won't ask this, but Chris, your reaction to this was?
Well, it was at the beach bar, wasn't it?
Of course, it was the beach bar,
which is where all the real business happens.
The best ideas come in.
And you just dropped it, didn't you? Well, we want to do LEDs in the sun and the rain and at night time.
And did you use any swear words?
Potentially.
Yes, okay. So let's move on quickly. The two presentation spaces, tell us about those, and when did that come to fruition? Or how did that idea come about? How do you end up with two spaces?
Yeah, well, that was down to Phil Bigwood, really. I mean, obviously, he was discussing about the kind of and I think the opportunity came about that we could have two presentation spaces. Obviously, the benefit of that was that we could have a terrace that could be used at night time. Obviously, the terrace is great for talent. You've got the environment, you've got the atmosphere, but then you've got the indoor studio, which then obviously weather plays a part. But also, what we could do with the indoor studio was that we could do more tools, and the AR, more kind of build up match and daytime it's better for as well. So that was kind of the two studio side of it. What I would say is that, from a kind of, that was great, but it was almost like, well, actually, what do we do? We've got two to actually create here, and there wasn't that much time really. So it's as we probably touch on a little bit later on. I mean, possibly part of the reason we kind of linked the two together because it just kind of also it made sense from that point of view, but it also made the creative a little bit better, that we could kind of have a synergy through the two studios.
In fact, while we ask the next question, if we could see that second video, please, without the sound, that'd be great. So just talk us through. There are two bits of this. So creatively, the two studios are linked both physically, but also in the design. So talk us just briefly about the design of the two studios.
Yeah, so what we did was we obviously, there was the inside studio, and then the terrace was above. So what we did was we obviously had the Brandenburg Gate, obviously very historic, Berlin, all the history behind that. And then so we went on a viewing trip to see the LEDs in action with Faber, who were the installation team. And while we were there, we came away, saw what the LEDs were like, the quality of them, and we sat on a minibus, and director Colin turned to me and kind of said, "They're really good, what are we going to put in them?" So, and that's when I literally just said something like, well, how about we do something kind of that's got a bit of a museum feel to it, because we've got the Brandenburg Gate behind us. And then I went and saw kind of what's called the Berlin New Museum, which is very much an architecture of the old and the new. And we created a kind of a virtual football museum, and then obviously as you can see from the terrace, you could see it, down below, and then when you were inside, we weren't trying to reenact that we were kind of right above, but we were in the same architecture effectively, and that was pretty much it. And obviously then our marketing team obviously came up with this kind of pinball creative sequence, and it was like, oh, how are we going to get that into the studio? So we kind of then merged the two a little bit. It was a football museum with a bit of a pinball kind of museum as well. So anyway, that's a bit of it in a nutshell. That's kind of what it was, really.
Makes perfect sense. With that idea in place, then, what did you plan in terms of technology, systems, and solutions? And Chris, if you could feed into this as well. So from that point onwards, how do you then make it work, basically?
I mean, I'm probably going to hand to Chris for a lot of this, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the only thing I would say is that, it was going to be Unreal Engine for the virtual side of it. Obviously, Jens Weber was our set designer, but he obviously just did the kind of the physical side element to it. So game and engine, and then obviously, I'll let Chris discuss the rest of it, really.
Over to you.
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, Unreal Engine. We relied quite heavily on Stipe technology for this one. So Stipe for the tracking, we had to come up with a viable solution for both the outdoor and indoor studio. The indoor one's quite straightforward, but obviously the outdoor one not so much. So we used Stipe Follower for the outside, and Red Spy indoors, Stipe Land with vanilla Unreal for rendering. And some internal products that we've got. So we have our own control system called AEQ, which integrates with our data platform Ether, so that we've got live data integrated templates for the AR operators. And that's pretty much it from the graphics technology side, I would say.
So what research, keeping all that in mind, LED is the different part of this, right? So before I get to Olaf, what research did you guys have to do in terms of using LED for this particular project?
Yeah, I mean, so
G&T.
That's a really good point. I mean, the thing is, we've obviously been working with green screen for quite a while now, and using game and engine. So for us, it was very much, this was the first time of using the extended reality within LED, and so it was, it was new to us in that sense. But I mean, and Chris can probably, in terms of the creative part of it, I would say not that much different. I mean, we're still kind of, building a physical set, and then we're creating a kind of a virtual and augmented world. It's just then how it kind of technically gets put into that. But that was pretty much from production side of it where we were. Obviously, the beauty of it, as everyone probably knows, is that the talent, obviously as well, that when they walk into a green screen studio, sometimes I don't think they're overly impressed, but they could see everything. And even on that video, which hasn't got audio, but we did have a little kind of a clip where the talent saw the studios for the first time and the reaction of them. You don't get that very often.
No, Micah Richards going nuts.
Yeah.
Alan Shearer
exactly.
smiling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that's kind of from production side of it, I would say the difference.
Yeah. So Olaf, tell us the role that Rowe and Faber, who was your I guess systems integration guys, played in making all this possible. Because let's be frank about this, there is a assumption that LEDs are very expensive. So tell us how you made this all possible.
You start with the weak points, right? You have to see the overall cost, but we have that later. It was more like a BBC kitchen party when I met Phil and the executive producer. He's in the audience. I don't know why he's not here, but he should. He has a lot of stories. And those guys, they want something, what we would call rock and roll. We're coming from rock and roll. We do Adele. We do all. This is our main business, and sport and live event is closer to us than the classical broadcast. So this was a good occasion for us as a manufacturer. We are not a seller or something. We manufacture to learn about the needs, and we want to do a premium project. And who else could be a better partner than the BBC and the kitchen party? So we met. And in the Zoom calls, the photos getting smaller and smaller because I think at the end 50, 60 people were in the call. It shows that there is still a road to go, the learning curve, but we are very happy and proud of it, to be part of it. So because we are a manufacturer, we recommend to involve our lovely partner Faber from NEP Group, and then we learned more about the concept. We didn't see a thing before. So John said, it may look like that. So we didn't even know what would be the right product. And our rental partner, they have obviously not always the best, newest product, but we want this project to be a premium project. So we shipped in and brought the best product we had to create floor and to do the immersive indoor studio, and that was a lot of fun, but also a lot of work. And we had a lot to learn from each other.
Talking of learning, there's a significant bit of R&D testing done before you got to Berlin. Just talk me through that quickly.
Yes, we said this. It's obviously when you have a live program, you want to be safe, and we understand that need, and we understand the fear of doing new things and failing out. It's for an audience like that, it's not possible. So we decided to invest in testing, and so in Wakefield we have a kind of showroom, and together with Faber and BBC, we went there, and so they came to us as well, but that was just for Bitterballen. Just to talk.
We put some panels outside a huge studio and production park, isn't it, in Wakefield, and then we had obviously the inside bit and we kind of put a bit of a, if I'm being completely honest, and that was quite late, because I can't remember if that was March or something. I mean, to be honest, it was a little bit like we got there and I was like, oh, thank God, I think it works. I think it works.
And this guy, he wants to compare, and not even that we have to test things, so he wants to compare the glossy floor with the matte floor,
Yeah,
because designers are like
I think most of the technical people were advising you can't have a glossy floor outside, there's too many reflections, and it was like, well, for what we want to do, the matte floor it'll just look dead. So we embrace the reflections and everything else. That's just what we did, really.
Good. One of the major challenges with this particular project, and this is Chris, I'm going to come to you with this, is how it affects the direction of the presentation output. Can you explain to the audience how, because it's not as easy as pressing a button on a vision mixer, how the workflow operated in Berlin via Salford?
Yeah, sure. And obviously there's a lot of people involved in a production like this, so I'll do my best to represent all the different people and partners involved. But essentially there were 3 galleries that existed for this project, so it was kind of a hybrid remote production. There was a gallery in Berlin, a small gallery in Berlin, with technical staff on site and obviously production staff on site. And then in Salford, there was another timeline gallery, and then one more .10 gallery. So there were 2 galleries in Salford, one in Berlin. And that was obviously to allow for on-site direction, and the shows that needed to follow closely behind could be done from Salford, and all the benefits of doing that as well. But it was really tricky because obviously you have technical staff, some here, some there, getting people organised on talkback, and then when you're trying to do rehearsing 2 studios, it's obviously a nice thing to have 2 studios, but it's quite easy to forget actually that's a huge challenge to orchestrate and organise, especially considering you get on site really with 1 week to get from nothing to completely ready. It's quite a challenge.
What about the firing of the actual graphics? So the director calls for a very simple camera change, and that's not very simple at all.
Yeah, so using the LED, obviously the view that we're seeing is tracking the perspective of the camera, which means that when you want to cut a camera, the LED perspective has to change, and that cut has to happen perfectly when that LED changes. Otherwise, you'll see a flash on the screen. Throw in, multi-visits. If you're directing it from Berlin, you've got a surface there, which is then talking back to the crate in Salford, which then comes back again to tell the engine to do that, and then the camera finds it and puts it back to Salford, and then comes back to monitoring again. It's a pretty crazy round trip of technical workflows and commands and vision. So yeah, it was.
Is it fair to say the director has to be a lot more patient? Is that the right word?
Look, the directors are used to some delay with AR engines and things like that. There was obviously more here, and I think actually there was a lot of work done, wasn't there, to try and preempt some of the.
I mean, I don't want to kind of speak directly for like a column and everything, but I think I'd maybe make it a little bit like when we started green screen studios, and obviously the delays. It was kind of in the gallery. It was kind of like, I'm not going to be able to work with a delay like that. Just no, I'm not going to be able to work with it. And then obviously you get on air and you start getting used to it, and it kind of happens. And I think it was a similar sort of thing here. Is that initially it was like, oh my god, that's not going to happen. But then once the program started, I think it becomes a bit more normal.
Yeah, he seemed pretty relaxed when I spoke to him.
Yeah, well, that was a few weeks in, wasn't
it? Finally, we've got enough time. With all these things, we all learn something. We win or we learn. So each of you, starting with Olaf, what did you learn from this project? Or to flip that, if you were to do it again, how could it be improved?
I think the most important message is that we if somebody wants to do a virtual studio and he's crossing by IBC and somebody tells him, here's one package, virtual studio, you buy it, you have it. It's not true. So it's all about the team, and you always start from somewhere. When you're invited to cook with somebody, you will not bring your oven with you, it's there. So we have an environment of broadcast AV technique, and we have to start from there. It's individual, and it's the team who made it.
Thank you. Chris, what did you learn, or what advice would you give to somebody who wants to work this way?
Yeah, there's so much. It's so hard to pick anything in particular. I think, honestly, the overall project was run with a real good, there were some really good people organising the projects, the meetings, the tasks, the testing that was done. I really honestly think that we got on site with very little surprises because of how much work was put in prior to that, and that's definitely the sort of thing I would take away from it. In the future, I think we would look to potentially provide vision engineers with some controls to have direct colour controls that this was sort of orchestrated via conversations with virtual technicians and things like that. So we saw some workflows that could be improved for sure. But yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. John, take us home.
So if you're going to put an LED floor on a terrace in the middle of summer, when it's potentially 33 degrees, make sure you get some air conditioning units in it, because that's the one thing that
80 degrees.
Chris has just said there that there weren't many surprises. Well, that was one. So yeah, there was a bit of that, but no. On a joking aside, there's things like that did crop up. I would just say, I mean, the one thing is that, again, as I say, we were a little bit new to this, and there was a little bit of a moment where it's kind of, is this going to all work? but the fact it did work, and I just think it just gives kind of production and creatives with the technology like that is just being able to be brave and just go for it. Is what I would say.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Very enlightening stuff. Please join me in thanking the panel for their time.